Holy Gospel according to Luke.
Glory to you, O Lord.
Now large crowds were traveling with Jesus, and he turned and said to them, "Whoever comes to me and does not hate father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, and even life itself, cannot be my disciple. Whoever does not carry the cross and follow me cannot be my disciple. For which of you, intending to build a tower, does not first sit down and estimate the cost to see whether he has enough to complete it? Otherwise, when he has laid a foundation and is not able to finish, all who see it will begin to ridicule him, saying, 'This fellow began to build and was not able to finish.' Or what king, going out to wage war against another king, will not sit down first and consider whether he is able with 10,000 to oppose the one who comes against him with 20,000? If he cannot, then while the other is still far away, he sends a delegation and asks for terms of peace. So therefore, none of you can become my disciple if you do not give up all of your possessions." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
Whoever comes to me and does not hate father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, and even life itself, cannot be my disciple. That's probably the harshest and most distant quote from Jesus in all the Gospels that I can think of. And I struggled with this. I tried to put together a sermon for this, and I looked at all the resources available, and they all found some ways to talk to it. And I had a fully prepared sermon to talk to it that just didn't ring with me. But then while I was preparing to come to church this morning, I got an idea. So I'm going to come to you with something that's a whole lot less rehearsed than I normally do. So I asked for some guidance or some latitude with that. But there's a lot in this sermon that is negative. And I think there's a few ways that I can explain it that make it make better sense to me. And you think about Jesus and his group of disciples going around Galilee and preaching. And people would hear his message and, of course, be very taken by it, very enthusiastic. And after he was done speaking, they would probably approach him and say, "Wow, this is really good. I want to be a part of this." And that creates a problem practically for Jesus in his ministry. Because you can imagine if he had a larger group than 12 following along with him. Let's say he had 100 folks coming with him as he went from town to town. It's going to change how he's received in the town, because the crowd that follows him from town to town is going to be bigger than the crowd in the town that's listening to him. That just wouldn't feel right. So I think Jesus probably saw the practical matter in that. The other thing is, how do you feed and accommodate all of those folks? It's a pretty big deal. So it just didn't make sense. So Jesus probably had to say, look, the bar to become a disciple is here. And he was pretty darn stern about how he said, here's the level, because it's extremely high. A lot of the biblical scholars say that he was really speaking in hyperbole. He was being very, very high in his statement there about hating your family to follow him, because he just didn't want people to understand that you really had to be committed and give up everything, which is very difficult to do. So the other thing that happens is if you have a group that large, at some point somebody's going to say, this isn't fun anymore. Hey, Jesus, I had to sleep on the ground for the third time last night. Can you get an inn at the next city? And that just isn't part of what's going on here. So I think there's a practical matter about discipleship there. I also think about in the movie Forrest Gump, when Forrest is running and people start following him while he's running, right? There's this big group of folks behind him. And then one day, Forrest turns around and he says, "I'm tired. I think I'm going to go home now." What did the rest of that group do? They dispersed and went about their things. So they really weren't, what was the reason they were running? So they're just following along because they were this group of folks, kind of like the folks that follow the Grateful Dead on tour. What's their purpose? And Jesus was probably concerned about those folks not having a purpose. So that's where I go with this, and I say that Jesus really wants us to do the small things in life that grow our faith by helping others in our community. We take the message that the folks in that time would have heard the message from him and applied it in their life, not give up their life and follow him. Take what he's preaching and apply it. And I think that's what I want to ask you about today is, it makes sense for us to help our neighbor, to feed the hungry, to clothe the poor. Those are the classic messages that we get from the scripture. But what about calling someone to let them know that you're thinking of them? What about listening to the world around you and seeing what needs to be provided in a simple fashion? Not an elaborate, super project, but just the little things that help us get by. What about being the good that you want to see in the world, in whatever form that is? These are seemingly small acts, but they really are huge. As a person who has received these from time to time, I can tell you, it is a difference maker. These actions are the foundation of a life Jesus asks us to